Good morning, students. So today I'm going to explain you the poem An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. That is the second poem in your textbook. So this poem is written by Stephen Spender, who was born in the year 1909 in England. So he was not only a poet but also a novelist and an essayist. Through his powerful writings, he established himself as a prominent poet of the modern age. He was a socialist and a pacifist and was sensitively alive to the contemporary social and political problems. So, by pacifist, we mean he was a peace lover. He believed in peace. So, most of his poems are related to this theme. So, this poem, that is An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, was published in the year 1964, and this is the best example of Spender's political concerns. Okay, now, as the title suggests, an elementary school classroom in a slum. So, we know that the poem is about an elementary school. Elementary school is a school where basic education is provided to the children. And slum is an area, a very crowded area in the city where basic amenities are, where people are deprived of their basic amenities, and the people, they live in very bad conditions. So these are called slums. Now, slums all over the world are alike. It's not only that in India we have slums which are, in a very bad state and very pathetic condition. All over the world, that is in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and even in England, everywhere the people living in such cramped areas have a very bad state of living. So now we talk about the theme of the poem. So I'm sure you've already guessed what the poem will be about. So it's about basically a classroom in the slum area. Now, living in an age of social instability and economic bankruptcy caused by the two world wars, Stephen Spender highlights the harsh realities of life as experienced by the slum children who are the victims of government apathy. So now, since Stephen Spender had witnessed the wars, the harmful effects that both the wars, the destruction that the wars had caused, and how the entire world was suffering from economic bankruptcy. So he here, through this poem, he's trying to highlight the condition of the slum children, and especially these slum children who are the victims of government apathy. Apathy is what? Lack of concern. So these areas, these slums where they require development and they require a better condition for living. So these are the neglected areas where the government makes all promises, for a better life for them. But, they're not, that kind of aid is not provided to the people who are living in these conditions. So, through this poem, he even highlights the social injustice and class inequality prevailing in the society and calls for a holistic education for the poorest of the poorer. So here in this poem, he's also highlighting the inequalities that are prevailing in the society, and the poet feels that only if holistic education is provided to these poor people who are living in these slums can their conditions improve, and only then they will be able to come out of their cramped areas and explore the world outside. So that will only and only happen if education is provided to them. And this education can only be provided when the authorities, the government, especially does something for the development of these people. So the poet suggests that this would be possible. What would be possible? The availability of education to the slum children would only be possible when the haves will realize their duty towards the have-nots. Now, the haves are who? The haves are the people who are privileged people, who have all the luxuries and comforts in their lives. Okay, and they will realize the duty towards the have-nots. Have-nots are the underprivileged people who are deprived of the basic amenities of food, clothing, and shelter. So only when these haves will realize their duty towards the have-nots will relieve the latter of their misery and provide them opportunities to lead dignified lives as human beings. So this can be only possible if the privileged people, they realize their duties towards these underprivileged people and provide them opportunities to lead a dignified life, just like other human beings. Okay, so this is what the theme is about. And now we are going to, I'm going to explain you the poem. I'll be explaining you the poem stanza wise. So the poem has 4 stanzas. First I'll explain you the first stanza. So in the first stanza, the poet gives the description of the children in the slum classroom. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with a weighed-down head, the paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from his desk. At back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces. Now here, gusty means lively, strong, energetic. Okay, so now the poet has used the word far, far to emphasize that the faces of these children are far away from the liveliness and jubilation of life. So the faces are dull, lifeless, worn out, and withered. Like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor. Now here the poet has compared the unkempt, untidy hair of the children to the rootless weeds, just as the weeds that they grow unwantedly all over the place. Similarly, the hair of these children are all scattered all over their pale face. Pallor is what? Face. All over the face, they're scattered, just like the unwanted plants are scattered all over. So it's a very nice description that the poet has given of the hair of the children that are scattered all over the face. The tall girl with her weighed down head. Now he's describing a girl there who's sitting in the class, and she's tall. She's taller than the other children, and her weighed down head. So that means she's sitting with her head weighed down. So basically, it is her state of poverty that has weighed her down, the misfortunes of her life, or maybe the trials and tribulations that she is experiencing in her life, the lack of confidence that she has, that has weighed her down. So she's sitting there bent, lacking confidence, and looking very sad. The paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes. Now, here he's describing another child sitting there who is very, very thin. Now, here the poet is comparing the child to paper, as thin as paper. So you can just see his bones, no flesh at all. He's very, very thin, extremely thin, and that is because of he's undernourished. He has no food to eat. Maybe he must have not eaten for days, must have not eaten one full meal even. So with rat's eyes. Now the poet has described that the eyes of that boy to appear as a rat's eyes. So a rat's eyes are always searching for food, and they appear to be very timid, scared. The rat is always scared of being caught. Similarly, the boy also, who's very, very thin, his eyes appear to be hungry. He's looking for food, searching for food, okay, and also some kind of security. The stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease. Now, there's another boy who's in the classroom who is stunted, means he's malnourished, his body has not grown properly, and that boy is the unlucky heir of twisted bones, means he's unlucky because he has inherited the disease, the gnarled disease of his father. Now, gnarled is what? It is a disease of twisted bones, where the bones are deformed. Okay, their bones, they pop out from the flesh. They appear to be popping out. So it's a deformity in the body, and he's unlucky because he has inherited that disease from his father. His lesson from his desk. Now, even the lesson that he is reciting from his desk also, so his lesson from his desk. So here, when he's reciting the lesson from his desk, his voice also appears weak and mellow, and it lacks enthusiasm. Now, at the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. Now the poet notices one child sitting at the back of the dim class. Here the word is used dim because there's no proper ventilation in the class. There are no windows. The class is appears to be very dim. Maybe there's no electricity connection also there. And there he notices a boy, a very sweet looking boy. Okay. He could see, that, what to call it? He can see his eyes. He can see that his eyes gleaming. There's a sparkle in his eyes. So his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game. So here, this boy who's sitting right at the back, okay, he appears to be very, very different from the rest. And it appears that he's lost in his thoughts, and his mind is actually dreaming of what? Of squirrel's game in a tree. So he's not in the class at that time. He's oblivious of his poverty and of the classroom, what is going on in the classroom, and he's dreaming of the world outside, the world where in the open, where the squirrel is playing a game in the tree room, and he is also he's also dreaming about playing in that vast green fields, just like the squirrels are playing. So other than the class, what is happening in the class, he's dreaming of the world outside the class. So this is the explanation of the first stanza, where he's described the children who are there in the class. So in this stanza, the poet describes the condition of the classroom, which is equally dull and dismal like the children in the class. So first I'll just read the stanza and then I'll explain it to you. On sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome, riding all cities, belled, flowery, Tyrolese valley, open-handed map, awarding the world its world. And yet, for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their futures painted with a fog. A narrow street sealed with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. Okay, so on sour cream walls, donations. So here the poet is trying to say that the walls of the classroom were very dull, okay, and they had turned a yellowish, okay, probably it was because walls had been painted long back with whatever donations the school had received, and probably the people who donated money never bothered to see how the school was progressing. So on the same wall, and there were certain pictures that were hanging. So one of the picture was the portrait of Shakespeare. Okay, so here Shakespeare, who is an epitome of literary excellence. Okay, but here for these children in the slum, here this the portrait of Shakespeare appears to be ironical here. Why? Because in this classroom where the value of education is minimal, so reference to Shakespeare raises just false hope to them and nothing else. Because for these slum children, their primary concern is just to obtain food to satisfy their hunger. So these literary training is a far cry for the children in the slum school. Okay, so there's also a picture of a cloudless sky. Okay, that is a clear sky at dawn. So this again gives hope for a new beginning. Okay, and then there's another picture, civilized dome riding all cities. So there's again a magnificent picture of a dome or a monument. So this shows the growth and progress of civilization, which is again just the opposite of what these slum children can see. Belt, flowery, Tyrolese valley. Now again in the same classroom, on one of the walls there's a beautiful picture of this Tyrolese valley, which is blooming and blossoming with flowers. Okay, and the view of this valley is very beautiful, and it's a heavenly splendor. It shows heavenly splendor. So again, these beautiful pictures, they're just pictures for them because they do not have any access to this kind of world that is that they're seeing on the walls of their classroom. Okay, open-handed map awarding the world its world. Okay, so besides these pictures, there is also a picture of a map. Okay, so a map which symbolizes hopes and aspirations. Okay, so when you look at a map, you're motivated to explore the world. Okay, awarding the world its world. So the map, it projects the beautiful world, which has been awarded to us by God with all its bounties, with all its with all its mountains and rivers and oceans and all. So all this beautiful world that God has given us is portrayed on the map. Okay, but for these children, and yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world. Now here, what the poet is trying to say, that for these children, which children? The children of the slum. these windows, not this map. So here, what the poet is trying to say is that to these children, the true world is not the one that is depicted in the map. Okay, so their world is what they can see through the foggy windows, okay, of their classroom. Okay, so their world is what they can see through the windows of their classroom. Okay, foggy windows, because there's no light that is penetrating into the class. Not this map, their world, where all their future is painted with a fog. So, so their world is dark and their future is bleak with no hope for improvement. It is foggy, okay? It is dull, it is covered with fog. So there's no hope for a bright future for them. Okay, then. A narrow street sealed in with the lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. Now, what they can visualize from the window is the narrow path that is enclosed by the lead sky. Lead sky is what? The grey, dark sky that symbolizes absence of hope. Okay. Now, when we talk about a clear blue sky, okay, it raises hopes, whereas a lead sky that is grey, blackish in color, okay, a lead sky which is covered with, which is polluted with toxins and smog, okay, so that obstructs the aspirations of the slum children. So their sky is all polluted with fog and toxins, okay, they cannot see the clear blue sky which they can explore and which can raise their hopes. Far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. So these children, they are miles away from the natural world of rivers, capes. Capes are mountains, and the stars of words. So their world is far away from the beautiful aspects of nature, what God has bestowed upon us. Now, stars of words. Now, when we talk about stars of words, now it means the words that give knowledge and and empower those who understand their meaning, okay, are like the twinkling stars that add sparkle to the sky.